Hey everyone, so I don't know if you watched my last video, but you should if you haven't, because this is a part 2 to that. For that story, go to the last video. This video is about my experience in jail and my thoughts on jail. So I ended the last video kind of starting that, so I'll start this video from where I left off. I'm having panic attack in jail. Before even that, I hadn't even booked. I was lined up with other activists. I was extremely dehydrated, and I just started like panicking about it because I was so dehydrated and no officer would let me have water. So I was just like, I'm gonna die here. And once I start like sobbing, all the activists around me were like, Cheyenne needs water. Water for Cheyenne. Water for Cheyenne. All the officers are like, what? And then they just see me panicking in the center and they're like, do you have some anxiety disorder? And I was like, bitch, I need water. And so they walk me, they like unclip my, because they were like zip cuffs. And so they unclip it, which by the way, I apparently got arrested wrong. I had my hands out like, so if they're behind your back, I had them like this, which I don't know why the fuck I did that. But you're supposed to have them like this or like this or something. I don't know. I did it wrong apparently, but I think it's like this. Anyways, I think it's like this. So don't do what I did. Don't go like this. So, they cut that, which was helpful, but wasn't what I was panicking about. And they take me to this water fountain that wasn't working. And so then they bring me to where I would later be brought to, which is by this like nurse person. And they start bringing me some water and I'm just drinking it. And I'm like, just thanking them so much. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And he's like, do one more, please. And he's giving me more water. And the nurse person there, she's just like, deep breaths, because I'm like hyperventilating. And yeah, so I calmed down once I had like 5 cups of water. And I was like, okay, do I need to go back now? He's like, yeah, I'll put you towards the front so you can get booked faster. And I was like, thank you so much. And so they bring me to the front and I get put through the thing. And they have like a thing where they're like, they just ask you a few questions about like, do you have, God, what do they even ask us there? Well, okay, first of all, they body pat, they like check you to make sure you don't have any weapons. They take any shoelaces or like if you have a belt or if you have any strings. Like I had strings in my pants and they had me like rip them out. Yeah, so they did that and rip my and they asked about like if you use drugs and if you they go like child at home, anyways, different things. They ask you things and then you get a paper and you're moved on to the waiting room. And in the waiting room, that was a horrible room. I wasn't even there for that long. So it's just like rows of like these like chairs that are like really hard. And then there's a TV and there's like behind the TV, there's this like painting of like the outside. It's like very pixelated, like it looks like a picture that was blown up, and it's supposed to calm people down, I guess, because it's the outside. And so I'm in there for like a hot minute. There's like a phone in a bathroom that's disgusting, and you're only supposed to stand up if you are going to the bathroom or using a phone. And yeah, so I was in there only for like a minute before this lady officer comes in and she was like, I need 8 women volunteer right now. And I was with my friend and we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, okay. So we go over and then she's like, a few other people come over and she's like, if you guys don't come right now, I'm gonna have to start picking. And so we turn, I'm like, you guys, like volunteers. And so a few other people get up and then we're brought into a holding cell because they ran out of room in the general like wait area. So this place generally processes, so it was the SoCo jail, so Sacramento, I don't even know what jail actually, SoCo, whatever the fuck that means. And they generally process like 30 to 40 people a night, and we brought in like double that. So they were overwhelmed. They were over fucking whelmed. So we were in the holding cell for a while. Let me do this holding cell. It's a cell. Just like this, and then there's like a little bathroom part. There was 8 of us in there, I believe. Actually, at one point there was 11. There was quite a few of us in there. And the whole place just smelled like shit. Like there's these two benches and then there's a phone, and so I was sitting like against this wall separating the bathroom area and this area, and all I could smell was shit, and I was like, you guys, this is bad. So we're all just talking. I only knew one other person in there, so we're all just getting to know each other. And eventually, many hours later, after we get called for all these different things, so like jail doesn't make any sense. Like the way that their system runs, it illogical as fuck. Like there's not an order. Like they would call someone for, basically they ask you if you're suicidal like 30 times. They didn't really ask me that. They asked like once. But for other people, they asked like 5 times in a row. They didn't do that for me. I think they just like forgot to do things for certain people. But yeah, so they would call someone to do that, and then they'd call someone else for a health exam, and then they'd call someone for like the fingerprints and like the mugshot. And also just the way that mugshots are set up, it's set up in a way to make you look like a criminal. Like, seriously, all of us look like, one of my cellmate later, her picture, she kept saying she looks like Jeffrey Dahmer. And we're all just in there for saving ducks. Like, dude. So I would just never trust like a mugshot of someone and how that portrays them, because it's extremely inaccurate. But yeah, so like the order, like some people weren't called for any of that process for like 10 hours. And so we were in that particular cell. Oh wait, sorry. So eventually, many hours in, we find literal human shit had been shoved like just under the phone booth. Under the phone. Shit there. And it's like smeared on top. So we were like, oh my God. So we tell the officers, we're like, there's human shit here. And they were like, okay. And they check it out, and when the janitor guy comes in, so we're told to like leave, and we're like lining up outside, and the guy comes in and looks, and he comes out and to like the custodial people, he's like, yeah, it's just kind of like a, and we just like laughed. And so yeah, they cleaned that and then kind of mopped the floors too, so that was actually really nice of them. Then we were in there for a while after, and that room was maddening, because every time someone talked, it echoed, so when multiple people would talk, it was just like bang, 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 bang. A mess. Not fun. Wouldn't recommend jail. And yeah, so that was just kind of maddening, and like not having the ability to just stand up and leave. Like I have control issues. I like being in control, and so being in a place where I can't do what I want is not ideal. I'd rather not. So that sucked. And I was also fasting, which my body just kind of knew. It was like, we're not going to be hungry for today. And I wasn't hungry the whole day. I had no desire to eat. So like, go body. Yes. Yeah. So we were in there for a while, and then eventually like 5.5 hours in, I was like, alrighty, well, you know, we never really get this much live action, because there was this guy across from us that had just, the whole time we'd been in there, staring out his window, just like swaying back and forth. And we were like, who the fuck is this? We named him George. So what we did is we started naming all the people we saw and then narrating their lives, and it was really fun. So yeah, there was George, and I don't remember what we said about George, but then this other guy got brought in. We called him Mr. Orange, and they had a weird power dynamic thing going on where Mr. Orange would just kind of like hover behind George, and then later this other guy comes off the ground. I think we named him Mr. Green. He just like emerges, just Mr. Orange helps him up. And we're just like, what? There's another person in there? He's like clearly drunk. And yeah, so there's another dude in there. And then there's this other guy who, so from where our cell is, we're like on a corner, and there's like another thing and then another room. And in this holding cell, there's other activist friends. And so we would like make eye contact with them and just be kind of like laughing back and forth. And they were right next to the guy who was screaming. And this guy was yelling, and we couldn't understand much, but at one time someone heard him yell like, it's my legal right to grow my medical marijuana. And so we started calling him Mr. Marijuana. We called a lot of people like Mr. or something. Then we started naming the cops and describing their lives. And then we did that further in the other cell we were brought to, which I'll tell you about in a second. But yeah, so that was kind of fun. That was probably the most fun part. And there was one lady there who was really helpful. She, one of the other people in the cell with me, she like she let me like lay on her legs and was just rubbing my back and was very helpful. And yeah, everyone there was really nice. We were all just bonding and it was good. I mean, like, being in jail wasn't good, but like the fact that it was with other people, I'm very lucky that I was doing that with so many people, because doing that alone, I mean, I guess I could do it, but like it would be hard, dude. So yeah, so we were in there for 6 hours, and then half of us had moved to housing because like none of us were bailing out. A few people did bail out, not in our room, but in other places. Not many people did though. But a majority of the people weren't bailing out, so we were all being moved to housing, and the police were pissed. They did not have enough room for us. They had to clear out cells. They had to do shit to prepare for us. So half of us have been moved to housing, so they moved us to the other holding cell that I'd mentioned earlier, with the other ladies. We were in there for maybe an hour or something, maybe not even that long. And we started narrating the other guy's lives too, and then the guy next to us started screaming again, and he was honestly hilarious. I get why he wasn't being released, which this is another thing where like nonviolence comes in handy when you want to get what you want. But yeah, he was a wreck. He was really funny though. He was really funny. He was super entertaining. He was like, "Mr. Sheriff, man, are those my fucking files? Because I was bailed out, and under the..." Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. "And under the law, you have to let me out by midnight when I'm bailed out. And it's 2 in the fucking morning. So why don't you do your job, big boy? Fuck you." He was going off. He was screaming. I found him so funny though. He was not nonviolent in word, tone, and action, but I thought he was funny. And eventually he got let out. I think I assume probably when he calmed down, because he was wild up. So an officer comes in. She's like, "We're moving you guys to the other room." So they move us to the other room, and by this time I'd been called periodically for different, things, fingerprint, mugshot, medical questions, and different things. They never interviewed any of us. Like they never interrogated any of us. Which, fun fact I learned about the Miranda rights is that they don't have to read you those until they start interrogating you. Which I didn't know, because they didn't read any of us our Miranda rights, so that was a question that came up. But yeah, so get moved to the larger room, which was still very, very full, and they'd kind of disregarded the rule of like, you're not allowed to lay down, because they were busy. And so a lot of people were laying down on the floor, like under the benches. And so I was talking with some friends, and then I did that. I was laying down for a while, and then got called up to do something, and then back and laid down again. And then I got called back again. It was time for housing. And so when I was really excited to get the clothes that I was wearing off, because I was in holding for a total of 10-ish hours, 10 or 11 hours. Some people were in there for 21 hours, so that was nothing compared to them, but it still sucked. Holding was the worst part by far of this whole thing. By far, holding was the worst. God, yeah. So I have to strip and like do the like squat and like hold your butt cheeks and cough and like do that whole thing, which I didn't really mind. I was fine with it. I was excited to get my clothes off. I had like dead bird on me, and so I was really excited to get that off of me, because it was really gross. And so yeah, did that whole thing, and then got my clothes, which their sizings were ridiculous. So I was in, like, people half my size were in the same size clothes as me. But yeah, so my clothes were really tight, but it was fine. I was excited to be out of the ones I was in. And I'm gonna sneeze again. So me and some other girls were led back to this other thing. We have to go through this full body scanner, and we're given like these blankets and change the clothes and like a towel, and we are led to our cells. And so they actually cleared out a whole unit for us, and we got to just all be together in the unit. Basically, we were all in our individual cells, but I was with another activist. We ended up getting really close and just like had some really good brainstorming sessions. Housing was a lot better. They didn't have vegan food until lunch the next day. Lunch or dinner the next day. I think it was lunch. Yeah, but I still wasn't eating anything, but they went like balls to the walls when they did come up with something. They had like an oatmeal patty thing and like mashed potatoes and like a cabbage salad and some pineapple and like this drink packet mix. So it was good for prison food, and it was all vegan, obviously. But yeah, that was when I got hungry for the first time, was seeing that. But I managed to fast the whole time, and so I fasted for a total of 62 hours, which was the longest fast I've ever done. The like longest previous one was 42 hours, I believe, so I beat it by a solid 20 hours. Yeah, so jail was actually, it was definitely maddening not being able to just like leave, but in some ways it was actually a nice break, because like I haven't had an opportunity where the only responsibility I have to do is sleep and read and like do Reiki on myself in a while. Like actually ever. I think it's the first time that's really ever happened. I didn't have a phone, so it was like social media detox, and then we got books, so I got to read books. And that night we got like almost 3 hours together outside in like the common area, and so they the first officer disregarded the no touching rule for us. So at the end of our thing, literally everyone group hugged. Prior to that, I had given 3 people Reiki. We'd watched The Office at one point. We had like a yoga circle going. We found a newspaper. Someone had to turn their ID in for it, and then get it back. But anyways, we found a paper with our picture in it, with me and the girl who was next to me, and we all got to read the article about ourselves and just get to like bond, and it was like a really cool bonding experience. So again, this is not a typical jail experience at all, not on the slightest at all, but it was kind of nice, that part of it. And I got this really good book that I'm going to actually buy. It's called Angels and Demons, and it's about like physics and the Illuminati, and I found it so intriguing. I got like 100 or so pages in. I was engaged. I was telling people about it. They were like, the Illuminati, and I was like, it's a good fucking book. I really liked the book. Yeah, so got to read, got to do Reiki. I'm pretty sure I astral projected the first night, which was my intention. I went back to my house and I talked to my roommate, and I was like, hey, your phone number rubbed off me, because I had written his phone number on me so I could call him. But half of it had rubbed off, so I couldn't do that. And I wasn't able to call my mom until the last day we were there, actually, because I never got a pin. But yeah, so yeah, I got to read, got to stretch. Really wasn't like a horrible experience in housing. We were there, so like we slept that night and then just had like a whole day in housing, and then the next day we had our arraignment, which an arraignment is when they decide, like the prosecutor, if they're going to press charges or not, and if so, what court date they're setting for everyone to come back, and then also deciding like if everyone's a flight risk, so if they have to stay in housing or if they get to go home, because no one or most people hadn't bailed out. And we're not a flight risk. DXE shows up with 100 friends to every court date, so yeah, we weren't flight risks. But when we went to court that day, it was 1:30. When we went to court that day, it was really funny because they lined us all up and we're all walking out, and we just had our hands behind our back. They didn't actually cuff us because like they literally knew we weren't a threat. And this cop is just watching this line go, and he was like, shit, because it's just this infinite line. There were 44 women, so it was a lot of women. And yeah, it was really funny. And he was like, well, I mean, if you're gonna do something, do it right. And we were just like, yes, like we were all laughing. And then yeah, we file into the courtroom, and we take up like half the courtroom, just the defendants. And then our friends start filing into the courtroom on the other side, and we didn't know this until after, but there was 150 people outside for us. Like, so probably a total of like 170 people showed up to support us at court. How cool is that? Like, how cool are our friends? Oh, I love them so much. They're amazing. So I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful for you for showing up, for being there, for doing that. It was amazing. 10 out of 10. I love you. Ugh. Yeah. So, the attorney, whatever dude, he says, we're not filing any charges on anyone today. That might change in the future, so they might file, which theoretically we should have heard about it because they said in the coming days, and it's been many days. But yeah, they said that they were going to do that. They didn't. They might. But here's the thing. Some people's goals are different, but the thing is if they file charges on us, then we're going to court. And we want to bring them to court because they're going to lose. We have the law on our side. We have the legal opinion of Harvard professors saying that we are within our legal right. We have all these attorneys saying you guys are correct, like you are within your legal right. We have a case. They don't. They're breaking the law. We're not. They would lose if they bring us to court. And if they don't, then we're just going to keep coming. And if they do, we're just going to keep coming. So it's a lose-lose situation for them right now, where their only way to win is to completely transform their farm to like a year-round veganic farm, which is what my organization is working on. So I'm going to work on approaching them with that. But yeah, so filing charges on us is really a no-go for them. They might still try to do it, specifically on the people like me who had chained themselves to the property. But I kind of don't think they're going to, because it would be a very bad decision for them. They would only lose money. That would be the outcome, them losing money and maybe their property and business. And so, yeah, when they said, though, like, no files are charged, then that obviously meant that everyone was released that day. And so I just started crying. And they actually read everyone's name and individually said to everyone, like, you are released today. And I was just crying. It was great. We're all just, we weren't allowed to talk to each other, so we were just looking at each other and like, oh, we bonded so heavily. And yeah, so we left. We were sent, we had some free time outside, because, not like outside, but in our general space. We actually didn't have any outside because that area was like under construction, because, you know, they weren't expecting us. So they told us that we might be there until like dinner that night, or like even later than that, because there's so many of us that getting us out will probably take a while. I don't know how they did this, but they did it actually really, really fast. They got all the women out very fast. Like, they called a few names and then the intercom came on. So like a few hours had passed, so we were just like reading and hanging out, and they were like, we're actually releasing everyone, so everyone get your shit together. And we were like, ah. So we all got our stuff together, got out of there. We had to do this whole process, you know, like changing and turning out and whatever. It wasn't really a big deal. We were all just excited to leave. And then when we walk out the door, there's our friends just clapping and cheering and being like, yay, go you guys. Like, and it was like such an atypical arrest experience. Like, most people don't get out of jail to 100 of their friends like cheering and like hugging them and telling them they love them. And they had this like assortment of food for us. Like, people had brought all these different things. Like, there was like pizza that had already been eaten, and there was like all this like fruit and like Oreos and like chips and guac and like just this whole array they'd set out for us, where they were like just really there to support and love us. And it was amazing, the support we got. And yeah, then we drove back in a van and got my car, and I was out of jail. And I have never appreciated my freedom so much. Like, it was really, even though it was like generally a pretty fine experience for me because of the situation that I was in, jail sucks. Like, I have never been so motivated to to completely transform and reinvent our prison system, because I've never really been in support of prisons. I think that we need rehabilitation centers where people can be helped. Not like we would have needed to go to a rehabilitation center, but we need those things. There are people who do need help, and they need that help to be really enforced. But our whole punishment paradigm of, oh, you do this, like, now I'm going to treat you how they treat non-human animals, which actually jail compared to what non-human animals go through in the industry for our experience was nothing. Like, we got to sleep and read books, and they don't. They are literally slaughtered in the end. So it was really nothing compared to what they go through for me. But like, I'm very abolish prison right now, and I definitely want to start doing work with that and start like helping inmates and doing a lot of different things like that, because it's a horrible place and it sucks and I don't recommend it at all. But that was the gist of my experience. I really appreciate my freedom now more than ever, and I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to have had an opportunity at Ecstatic Dance to heal and release a lot of that trauma from that action and just from being incarcerated. Yeah, so that's all. I love you guys. I took like 5 days to film this video. Not that long, like 4 days to film this video, but I love you guys a lot. Thank you for watching. More content will be coming. I'm kind of gonna switch up the vlog thing, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. This channel will be fun. I love you. Bye.